The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive dome under the artificial sky of Station Prime. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the floating seats that moved slowly around the central speaking platform. The air buzzed with the sound of hundreds of different languages being translated. Through universal communicators. Ambassador Zekthar stepped onto the speaking platform. His forearms spread wide as he looked up at the council members floating above him. The hegemony representative was tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His black eyes scanned the crowd as he waited for silence. "Fellow council members," Zekthar began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall's sound system. "Today I bring news of great importance to our mighty hegemony." Several council members shifted in their seats. The hegemony had been busy lately, expanding their territory across 3 star systems in the past year. Their war machine was strong and their technology was advanced. Most species preferred to stay out of their way. "We have decided to claim the planet Earth as our newest tributary world," Zekthar announced proudly. For a moment the hall was silent. Then a strange sound began to fill the air. It started as a quiet chuckle from somewhere in the upper seats. Then another being joined in. Within seconds, the entire hall was filled with laughter. Zekthar's face darkened as he watched thousands of galactic representatives laughing at his announcement. His 4 hands clenched into fists at his sides. Council Elder Vorthak, a large being with purple skin and tentacles instead of arms, floated his chair down closer to the platform. His deep voice boomed through the hall as he tried to control his laughter. "My dear Zekthar," Vorthak said, wiping tears from his large yellow eyes. "Surely you jest. Earth? That tiny blue world on the edge of the galaxy? The one with the primitive humans?" The laughter grew louder. Ambassador Kilafron. The Crystal Federation made a sound like breaking glass, which was how her species laughed. "The humans still use chemical rockets to leave their planet," she called out. "They burn fuel like cavemen burn wood. Their weapons shoot small metal pieces," added Counselor Brix from the Machine Collective. His mechanical voice was set to what humans might recognize as an amused tone. "They call them bullets. How charming." Zekthar raised his voice over the laughter. "These humans may seem primitive, but they control an entire planet, a world with vast resources and—" "Resources?" interrupted Elder Vorthak. "My dear friend, they cannot even agree on how to share those resources among themselves. They fight each other constantly over lines drawn on maps. They have hundreds of different governments on one small world." More laughter filled the hall. Ambassador Quinn from the Ethereal Collective floated in her energy form, her light pulsing in patterns that showed her amusement. "I have studied their broadcasts," she said in her musical voice. "They still debate whether their planet is getting warmer. They cannot agree on basic facts about their own world and their space program," called out Representative Mock from the Trader Guilds. "They have been to their own moon only a few times. Their space stations are held together with metal bolts and hope." The laughter continued. Zekthar felt his pride burning inside his chest. The hegemony was the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy. They had conquered entire star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of most species. Yet these council members were laughing at their choice of target. "You underestimate them," Zekthar said, his voice getting louder. "The humans have survived on their world for thousands of years. They have built great cities and—" "Great cities?" Vorthak's tentacles waved in amusement. "Cities that would be destroyed by a single plasma bolt from one of your smaller ships. Their tallest buildings are made of metal and glass. Their vehicles still touch the ground as they move." Ambassador Kess from the Hive World spoke up. Her insect-like body clicked as she talked. "Our scouts have observed their military exercises. They march in lines across open ground. They use vehicles that move on wheels. Wheels like ancient toys. Their flying machines need air to work," added Counselor Yenth from the Cloud Riders. "Take them above their atmosphere and they fall like rocks. They have no understanding of real space combat." Zekthar's face was now dark with anger. Regardless of their current technology level, they occupy a strategic position in strategic position? Elder Vorthak's laughter boomed through the hall. My friend, Earth is so far from any important trade routes that most species forget it exists. It sits alone in empty space, ignored by civilized beings for good reason. The humans are not even a unified species, called out Ambassador Keela. They speak hundreds of different languages. They worship different gods. They cannot agree on anything. How could they possibly mount any kind of defense against a real military force? Representative Mock floated his chair closer to the platform. I have traded with human merchants, he said. Nice enough beings, but simple. They get excited over basic technology that we have used for thousands of years. They think faster than light communication is magical. They only recently figured out how to send messages across their galaxy, added Counselor Brix. We have been listening to their radio signals for decades. They broadcast everything into space with no encryption, no security. They tell everyone exactly where they are and what they are doing. Ambassador Quinn's light pulsed thoughtfully. I've observed their entertainment broadcasts. They tell stories about alien invasions where the humans always win through luck or friendship. They have no real understanding of galactic warfare. The laughter in the hall began to settle into amused murmuring. Zekthar stood silently on the platform, his pride wounded but his determination unchanged. Elder Vorthag floated his chair even closer to the platform. His voice became more serious, though amusement still colored his words. Zekthar, my friend, we understand that the hegemony needs to continue expanding to maintain its power. But surely there are better targets than Earth. The Keth worlds are rich in minerals. The borderland systems have established trade networks. Earth has nothing but a single species that has barely left its own planet, added Ambassador Keela. What glory is there in conquering beings who fight with metal tubes and chemical explosives? Zekthar straightened his shoulders. The hegemony has made its decision. We will claim Earth within the next month. Our fleet is already preparing to depart. More chuckles rippled through the hall. Counselor Yenth spoke up from his floating position. How many ships are you sending to conquer this mighty Earth? A full battle fleet, Zekthar replied proudly. 15 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and 200 support vessels. The hall erupted in fresh laughter. Elder Vorthak's tentacles waved so hard with amusement that his chair bobbed in the air. A full battle fleet? To conquer one primitive world? My dear Zekthar, that is like using a plasma cannon to hunt insects. You could conquer Earth with a single cruiser, called out Representative Mock. Maybe just a transport ship with a few soldiers. Why not send a trade vessel? SUGGST de Ambassador Kess. Offer them some shiny beads and they will probably surrender willingly. Zekthar's voice rose above the laughter. The hegemony does not take chances. We will overwhelm them completely. There will be no possibility of resistance. Resistance? Vorthak wiped tears from his eyes again. What resistance? They have no orbital defenses, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. What are they going to do? Throw rocks at your ships? Ambassador Quinn's light pulsed in a pattern that suggested deep thought. Actually, this could be quite entertaining, she said. The humans are creative with their stories. It might be amusing to watch how they react to a real invasion. Several council members made sounds of agreement. Counselor Brix's mechanical voice buzzed with interest. We could broadcast the invasion across the galactic networks. It would be educational for younger species to see how efficiently the hegemony operates. An excellent idea. Elder Vorthak's tentacles clapped together. We can make it a learning experience. Show the galaxy how quickly advanced technology can overwhelm primitive resistance. Representative Mock nodded enthusiastically. The betting pools would be very popular. Though I suppose the only real question is whether the humans surrender in the first hour or the first day. I give them 6 hours, said Ambassador Keela. Once they see the size of your fleet, they will realize. Resistance is pointless. 4 hours, countered Counselor Yenth. Humans are not stupid, just primitive. They will see reason quickly. Zekthar found his anger being replaced by a different feeling. The council was no longer laughing at the hegemony's choice of target. They were now treating it as entertainment. That was not exactly respectful, but it was better than mockery. Elder Vorthic's voice became more formal as he addressed the hall. Very well. The Galactic Council recognizes the hegemony's claim on Earth. We will monitor the situation and broadcast selected portions for educational purposes. He turned back to Zekthar. I assume you will follow standard invasion protocols? Orbital. Bombardment of military targets, followed by ground forces to secure major population centers? Of course, Zekthar replied. We are not barbarians. Civilian casualties will be minimized. The humans will be given chances to surrender before each phase of the operation. How very civilized of you, Vorthak said with amusement still in his voice. I am sure the humans will appreciate your consideration. Ambassador Quinn floated closer to the platform. Will you be taking prisoners for study? Human biology and psychology could be interesting to research. Some specimens will be preserved for scientific purposes, Zekthar confirmed. The rest will be relocated to work colonies where they can contribute to the hegemony's prosperity. Councillor Brix made a mechanical sound that might have been approval. Efficient. You will have the entire operation completed before any other species could even travel to Earth to observe. The distance works in our favor, agreed Representative Mock. By the time word spreads across the galaxy, Earth will already be a hegemony world. Elder Vorthik straightened in his floating chair. Then it is settled. The Galactic Council wishes the hegemony's success in their educational demonstration on Earth. May it serve as a lesson to other primitive worlds about the benefits of joining galactic civilization peacefully. The council members began to float away from the platform, their conversations turning to other matters. Many were already making plans to watch the invasion broadcasts. Some were organizing viewing parties. A few were even setting up betting pools on various aspects of the conquest. Zekthar remained on the platform as the hall slowly emptied. His pride was somewhat restored, but something still bothered him. The casual dismissal of Earth's defensive capabilities felt too easy. The hegemony had not become a galactic power by underestimating their enemies. But then again, what threat could one primitive world possibly pose to a fleet that had conquered star systems? The humans had no allies, no advanced technology, no understanding of space warfare. The conquest would indeed be educational, though perhaps not in the way the council expected. As Zekthar finally left the platform, he was already thinking about the victory celebration that would follow Earth's surrender. The hegemony would gain a new world, new resources, and new respect from the galactic community. What could possibly go wrong with such a simple operation against such a helpless target? In a few weeks, Earth would be just another conquered world in the hegemony's growing empire. The humans would learn to accept their place in the galactic order, just like every other species before them. The laughter still echoed in Zekthar's memory as he left the council chambers. Soon, he thought, the galaxy would see just how efficiently the hegemony could operate. The conquest of Earth would be over so quickly that most beings would miss it if they were not paying attention. After all, what challenge could a species of primitive humans possibly present to the most advanced military force in this sector of the galaxy? 3 weeks after the council meeting, Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive viewing screen, he could see the blue and green world called Earth spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Behind him, his invasion fleet stretched out across space like a metal cloud. 15 dreadnoughts, each one larger than most species' entire space stations. 40 cruisers bristling with weapons that could crack a planet's surface. 200 support ships carrying troops, supplies, and everything needed to conquer a world. Korath was a veteran of 12 planetary invasions. He had conquered 3 star systems for the hegemony. His gray skin bore the ritual scars of victory, and his 4 arms had personally planted hegemony flags on dozens of worlds. This should be the easiest conquest of his career. Communication. Officer Vex, Korath called out. Open a channel to the human homeworld. Standard invasion protocol. Yes, Admiral. Vex's tentacles danced over his control panel. Channel open, sir. Korath straightened his uniform and faced the communication screen. In moments, a face appeared on the screen. It was a human female with dark skin and short black hair. She wore some kind of blue uniform with strange markings on it. Behind her, Korath could see what looked like a primitive command center with screens and flashing lights. "This is Admiral Korath of the Hegemony Third Fleet," he announced in his most commanding voice. "I speak for the Galactic Council and the power of civilized space. Your world has been chosen to join the Hegemony as a tributary planet. You will surrender all military forces immediately and prepare for occupation. Compliance will ensure the safety of your population?" The human woman looked at him calmly. Her expression did not show the fear or panic that Korath expected. "This is General Patricia Hayes, United Earth Defense Command," she replied. "We received your message." Korath waited for her to continue, to ask for terms or beg for mercy. Instead, she just looked at him with steady eyes. "Well?" Korath said after a long moment. "Do you surrender?" General Hayes was quiet for several seconds. Then she spoke in a voice that was completely calm. "We'll give you one chance to leave." The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent. Korath's communication staff looked at each other in confusion. His tactical officers stopped their work to stare at the screen. Korath felt his jaw drop open. In all his years of conquest, no primitive species had ever responded to surrender demands with a threat. They begged, they cried, they offered tribute, or they simply accepted defeat. They did not tell a hegemony admiral to leave. "I do not think you understand," Korath said slowly. "Look at your screens. Look at the size of my fleet. You have no orbital defenses. Your weapons cannot reach us. Your entire planet is at my mercy," General Hayes nodded. "We can see your ships. Very impressive. Big, bright, and easy to target." "Easy to target?" Korath's voice rose. "With what? Your primitive missiles? Your chemical rockets? That's for us to know," Hayes replied. "But I'm telling you now, Admiral. This is your only warning. Take your fleet and leave. Don't come back." Korath's 4 hands clenched into fists. "You dare threaten the hegemony? I have weapons that can destroy your cities from orbit. I have soldiers that have conquered star systems. I have technology your species cannot even understand." "Maybe," Hayes said, "but you have one thing working against you." "And what is that?" General Hayes smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You picked the wrong planet." The communication ended. The screen went dark, leaving Korath staring at his own reflection. "Sir?" Communication Officer Vex's voice was uncertain. "Should I re-establish contact?" "No," Korath said after a moment. "They have made their choice. Begin orbital bombardment of military targets. Standard pattern. We will show them what defiance costs." "Yes, Admiral." "Targeting military installations now." Korath watched as his weapons officers worked their controls. On the tactical display, red targeting markers appeared over Earth's surface. Military bases, radar stations, missile silos, naval ports, all would be destroyed in the first wave. "Firing solution ready, Admiral." "Fire!" The space around Earth lit up as energy beams and plasma bolts shot down from the hegemony fleet. Korath watched with satisfaction as the weapons struck their targets. Explosions bloomed on the planet's surface like deadly flowers, but something was wrong. "Sir," called out Sensor Officer Krim, "I'm reading unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface." "What kind of signatures?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be some form of defensive screens, but the configuration doesn't match any known technology." Korath frowned. "Defensive screens? Impossible. Our intelligence reports show no such capability." "Nevertheless, sir, several of our targeting systems are being interfered with. Some of our shots are missing their intended targets." "How can primitive humans interfere with hegemony targeting systems?" "Unknown, sir. The interference appears to be coming from multiple locations across the planet." Korath stared at the tactical display. Red error messages were appearing next, to several target markers. His weapons officers were working frantically at their controls. "Sir," Sensor Officer Krim called out again. "We're detecting multiple objects launching from the planet's surface. They're primitive missiles. Pathetic. How many?" "Counting, sir. 100, 200, 500. Krim's voice became uncertain. "Sir, I'm now reading over 2,000 objects leaving Earth's atmosphere." 2,000 missiles? Korath felt a cold feeling in his stomach. That's impossible. Our intelligence said they had only limited nuclear capability. "These don't appear to be following normal missile trajectories, sir. They're moving in patterns I don't recognize." On the main viewing screen, Korath could see small lights rising from Earth's surface. They moved like a swarm of angry insects, weaving through space in ways that made no sense for guided missiles. "Time to impact?" "Unknown, sir. Their flight paths keep changing. Some appear to be targeting our forward ships, but others are taking indirect routes that don't make tactical sense." "Defensive fire. Destroy them all." The hegemony fleet's defensive weapons opened fire. Streams of energy and explosive shells filled the space between Earth and the invasion fleet. But the human missiles moved like living things, dodging and weaving through the defensive fire. Some were destroyed, but most kept coming. "Sir," Weapons Officer Tal called out. Several of the incoming objects just split apart. Each one became 3 smaller objects. Cluster warheads, standard defensive measure. "Our shields will handle them." But as Korath watched, something impossible happened. The first human weapons reached his outer ships, but instead of exploding on contact with the energy shields, they passed right through. "Shield penetration," Tal shouted. "How are they getting through our defensive screens?" Explosions began flowering across the hulls of hegemony ships. Not the massive explosions Korath expected from nuclear weapons, but smaller, more precise. Blasts that seemed to target specific systems. "Damage reports. Multiple ships reporting systems failures, sir. The human weapons appear to be designed to disable rather than destroy." "Disable?" Korath could not believe what he was hearing. "You mean they're not trying to kill us?" "No, sir. They're targeting communications, sensors, and weapon systems. It's like they want to blind us, not destroy us." Korath felt his confidence shaking. This was not how primitive species were supposed to fight. They were supposed to throw everything they had at the invasion fleet and hope for the best. They were not supposed to use precision weapons designed to disable advanced technology. "Sir," Sensor Officer Krim called out, "I'm detecting additional launches from Earth. These appear to be larger objects. More missiles?" "Negative, sir. These appear to be spacecraft." Korath's blood went cold. "Spacecraft? Impossible. Humans don't have space warships." "Sir, I'm reading multiple contacts. They appear to be moving under their own power, but their design doesn't match any known human technology." On the viewing screen, new objects were rising from Earth, but these were not the small, bright points of the missiles. These were larger, darker shapes that moved with purpose through space. "Analysis! Unknown design, sir." "They appear to be using some form of propulsion we don't recognize." "No chemical rockets, no plasma drives. They're just ... moving." "How many?" 50 contacts and rising, sir. Wait, 100, 200. Krim's voice became strained. "Sir, I'm now reading over 500 spacecraft launching from various points on Earth's surface. 500 warships? That's impossible." But as Korath watched, the human spacecraft moved into formation around Earth with a precision that spoke of long practice. They were not flying like desperate defenders making a last stand. They were moving like a fleet that knew exactly what it was doing. "Sir," Communication Officer Vex called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Put it through." General Hayes appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Korath could see increased activity in what he now realized might not be as primitive a command center as he had thought. "Admiral Korath," Hayes said calmly, "I gave you a chance to leave. You chose not to take it." "Your resistance is brave but futile," Korath replied, though his voice lacked the confidence it had held earlier. you may have surprised us with? Hidden weapons, but you cannot stand against the full might of the hegemony. Hidden weapons? Hayes looked genuinely puzzled. Admiral, we haven't used any weapons yet. We just launched some defensive satellites and a few patrol ships. Defensive satellites? Those were missiles that penetrated our shields. No, Admiral, those were repair drones. They're designed to fix damaged equipment. We sent them to help you with your targeting problems. Korath felt like the bridge was spinning around him. Help us? You attacked our ships? We disabled your offensive weapons, yes. We can't let you bombard civilian targets. But we haven't actually hurt anyone. Yet. Hayes paused. Would you like us to start? You're bluffing. Those ships of yours are jury-rigged civilian craft with improvised weapons. Hayes smiled that same unfriendly smile from before. Admiral, you really should have done better intelligence gathering before you came here. Our intelligence was thorough. Earth has no space military, no advanced technology, no orbital defenses. You're right about one thing, Hayes said. We don't have orbital defenses. Korath felt a moment of relief. We have something better, Hayes continued. We have a really, really good memory. What does that mean? It means we remember every alien ship that ever passed through our system, every deep space probe that scanned our planet, every time someone has been watching us from the edges of our solar system. Hayes leaned forward on the screen. Did you really think we didn't know about the galactic community? The bridge of the Eternal Dominion was completely silent. Korath felt his mouth go dry. We've been listening to your communications for decades, Admiral. We know about the hegemony. We know about the Galactic Council. We know about every major power in this part of space. Hayes's expression became very serious, and we've been getting ready. Getting ready for what? For the day someone decided Earth looked like easy prey. Hayes stood up. Admiral, this is your last chance. Leave now, or we'll show you what humans do to uninvited guests. Korath looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments with expressions of growing concern. His weapons were disabled, his sensors were being jammed. His communication systems were unreliable, and surrounding his mighty invasion fleet was a growing cloud of human spacecraft that his intelligence reports said should not exist. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Korath began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Korath stared at the communication screen for a long moment after General Hayes ended the transmission. The bridge of his flagship was quiet except for the soft humming of instruments and the occasional worried murmur from his crew. Sir, Weapons Officer Tal called out hesitantly. What are your orders? Korath turned away from the dark communication screen. His pride as a hegemony admiral burned in his chest. No primitive species had ever spoken to him with such disrespect. No backward planet had ever disabled his weapons and then offered him mercy. The humans thought they were clever, but they had no idea what they were dealing with. Full invasion. Protocol, Korath said firmly. Deploy all ground forces. I want troops on the surface of Earth within the hour. Sir, Sensor Officer Krim spoke up carefully. The human ships are still surrounding us. Shouldn't we deal with them first? 500 small craft against a hegemony battle fleet? Korath waved one of his four hands dismissively. Our shields may be having technical problems, but our armor is still intact. Our ships still outmass theirs 1,000 to 1. Begin landing operations immediately. Yes, Admiral. Korath watched on. His tactical display as transport ships began launching from his fleet. Each transport carried 200 fully armed hegemony soldiers. Their armor could stop any primitive weapon. Their energy rifles could cut through any material the humans might use for cover. Their training was the best in the galaxy. The first wave consisted of 50 transports heading for major population centers across Earth: New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. The humans would see hegemony soldiers landing in their most important cities and would understand that resistance was hopeless. But as the transports approached Earth's atmosphere, something strange began happening. Sir, called out the flight controller, Transport Group Alpha is reporting navigation problems. Their targeting systems are showing multiple false readings. What kind of false readings? They're seeing landing zones that don't exist, sir. Cities that appear to be in the wrong locations. Some are reporting that entire mountain ranges have moved. Korath frowned. Equipment malfunction. Tell them to use visual navigation. Sir, they say they are using visual navigation. But what? They see through their windows doesn't match what their instruments are telling them. That's impossible. On the main viewing screen, Korath could see his transport ships approaching Earth. They should have been moving in neat formation toward their assigned targets. Instead, they seem to be wandering around like lost insects. Sir, the flight controller continued, Transport 7 is requesting permission to abort landing. They say the landing zone they're approaching doesn't match any known terrain features. Abort? Absolutely not. Tell them to land where they can and establish a foothold. Yes, sir. Korath watched with growing frustration as his perfectly planned invasion began to fall apart. Transports were landing in empty fields instead of city centers. Others were circling in confusion over areas that looked nothing like their target zones. A few had simply disappeared from his sensors entirely. Where did Transport 12 go? Korath demanded. Unknown, sir. They reported normal approach, then we lost contact. Lost contact? How do you lose contact with a transport ship? Unknown, sir. Their last transmission was a request for updated landing coordinates. 20 minutes later, the first reports began coming in from the ground forces that had managed. To land, sir, Communication Officer Vex announced. Ground Commander Brock is requesting immediate support. Put him through. The face that appeared on the communication screen was scratched and dirty. Commander Brock's usually perfect uniform was torn, and there was a wild look in his eyes. Admiral, Brock said breathlessly, we have a problem, report Commander. Sir? We landed in what our intelligence said was a major human city. Instead, we found ourselves in the middle of some kind of training facility. The humans were waiting for us. Waiting for you? How could they know where you would land? Unknown, sir. But they knew exactly where we were coming down. They had prepared positions, weapons that shouldn't exist, and sir, Brock paused, they fight like nothing we've ever encountered. Explain? They don't fight like civilized beings, sir. They use the terrain against us. They hide in holes in the ground. They attack from directions we can't see. And they use weapons we can't understand. What weapons? Energy rifles. Plasma cannons? No, sir, much worse. They use psychological warfare. Korath felt a chill run down his spine. Psychological warfare? They play sounds that make our soldiers afraid to move. They project images that make us see threats that aren't there. They somehow know exactly what each species in our army fears most. Brock's voice became strained. Sir, half my force is too terrified to leave their landing ship. That's impossible. Hegemony soldiers are trained to resist mental attacks. Sir, with respect, we were trained to resist known forms of mental manipulation. The humans are using techniques we've never seen before. They seem to understand how every species in our force thinks. Before Korath could respond, another communication came in from a different ground commander. Admiral, this is Commander Yex from Landing Zone 7. We have an emergency situation. What now? Sir, the humans have nuclear weapons. But they're not using them the way our intelligence predicted. Explain. They're not launching them at our ships or trying to destroy our landing zones. Instead, they're using them tactically against our ground forces. Small nuclear devices that disable our equipment without causing massive destruction. Korath felt his confidence cracking. Small nuclear devices? That's not possible. Nuclear weapons are massive destructive tools. Sir, these humans appear to have weaponized nuclear technology in ways we didn't think were possible. They have nuclear-powered projectiles, nuclear-enhanced explosives, and nuclear electromagnetic pulse devices. And Sir... Commander Yex paused. They're willing to use them in their own territory. What do you mean? I mean they detonated a nuclear device to stop our advance through one of their cities. They destroyed their own buildings and irradiated their own land just to prevent us from moving forward. Korath stared at the communication screen in shock. No civilized species would use weapons of mass destruction on their own territory. The economic damage alone would take decades to repair. The environmental contamination would make the area unusable for generations. Sir, Commander Yex continued, these humans don't fight like they're trying to win. They fight like they're trying to make sure we can't win either. A third communication came in from another landing zone. Admiral, this is Commander Kess from the northern continent. We need immediate evacuation. Evacuation? You just landed an hour ago. Sir, the humans have turned their entire infrastructure into a weapon against us. Their communication systems are spreading false information to confuse our forces. Their transportation networks are designed to lead us into ambush. Even their civilian buildings are trapped. Trapped how? They have explosive devices hidden throughout their cities. Not to kill us, sir, but to collapse buildings and block our movement. They're turning their own civilization into a maze that only they know how to navigate. Korath felt like the universe was spinning around him. This was not how invasions were supposed to work. Ground forces landed, established control of major population centers, and accepted the surrender of local governments. They did not get lost in psychological warfare, tactical nuclear strikes, and booby-trapped cities. Sir, Sensor Officer Krim called out, we're detecting unusual activity in space around Earth. What kind of activity? The debris field around Earth appears to be moving, sir. Moving? It's space junk. How can space junk move? Unknown, sir. But objects that have been in orbit for decades are changing their positions. Some appear to be forming into larger structures. Korath looked at the main viewing screen. Around Earth, he could see thousands of small objects that he had dismissed as orbital debris. Old satellites, spent rocket stages, pieces of metal that had been floating in space for years. But now they were moving with purpose, connecting to each other like pieces of a giant puzzle. Sir, Krim continued, the objects appear to be using some form of magnetic propulsion. They're assembling into what looks like... What? A defensive grid, sir? The humans are building orbital fortifications out of their own space junk. That's impossible. Those objects have been dead in space for decades. They have no power sources, no propulsion systems. Nevertheless, sir, they are clearly moving under some form of control, and Admiral ... Krim's voice became very quiet. I'm detecting weapon signatures from the assembled structures. Korath felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. Weapons? What kind of weapons? Unknown configuration, sir. But the energy readings are significant. At that moment, Communication Officer Vex announced another incoming transmission from Earth. Admiral, General Hayes appeared on the screen again. How is your invasion going? Korath tried to keep his voice steady. Your resistance is more organized than we expected, but you cannot stop the full might of the hegemony forever. Can't. We? Hayes looked genuinely curious. Admiral, let me ask you something. How much do you know about human military history? Your species has a history of primitive conflicts. Wars fought with chemical weapons and metal projectiles. That's true. We do have a lot of experience with war, but I don't think you understand what that means. Enlighten me. Hayes leaned forward on the screen. It means we've spent thousands of years learning how to kill each other efficiently. We've developed weapons, tactics, and strategies for every possible situation. Desert warfare, jungle warfare, mountain warfare, city warfare, psychological warfare, guerrilla warfare, nuclear warfare. She paused. The only thing we've never had to deal with before is space warfare. Then you admit your disadvantage, do I? Hayes smiled. Admiral, did you know that for the past 50 years, human military planners have been developing tactics specifically for fighting technologically? Superior alien forces? Korath felt his mouth go dry. What? We call it asymmetric warfare. The idea is that a technologically inferior force can defeat a superior enemy by refusing to fight on the enemy's terms. Instead, You use the enemy's advantages against them. That's just theory, is it? Admiral, let me tell you what we've learned about your forces in the past 2 hours. Hayes looked down at something off-screen, then back at Korath. Your soldiers are trained for conventional battlefield scenarios. They expect clear lines of engagement, defined objectives, and logical defensive positions. They're not prepared for an enemy that doesn't follow those rules. She continued, Your technology is designed for fighting other advanced civilizations. Your sensors expect to detect energy signatures and metal alloys. Your weapons are calibrated for penetrating advanced armor and energy shields. Your tactics assume your enemy will try to win through superior firepower. Korath found himself listening despite his fear. But humans don't fight that way, Admiral. We fight dirty. We use whatever works. We turn our weaknesses into strengths and your strengths into weaknesses. Hayes's expression became very serious, and we never, ever give up. You're bluffing. Your ground forces cannot stand against trained hegemony soldiers indefinitely. Maybe not. But Admiral, we're not trying to win on the ground. What do you mean? I mean that while your soldiers have been getting lost in our cities and dealing with our traps, we've been studying every piece of technology you brought to our system. Every weapon, every ship, every piece of equipment. Hayes paused, and we've been adapting. As if to emphasize her point, alarms began sounding throughout Korath's flagship. Sir, Sensor Officer Krim called out in panic. The human orbital constructions are targeting our ships. Impossible. Those are just pieces of space junk. Not anymore, sir. They're firing some kind of projectile weapons. Kinetic impactors moving at significant fractions of light speed. On the viewing screen, Korath could see streaks of light shooting from the assembled orbital structures toward his fleet. The projectiles moved too fast to track, but when they hit hegemony ships, the results were devastating. Damage report. Multiple impacts across the fleet, sir. The projectiles are penetrating our armor like it's not there. How is that possible? Unknown, sir. The impacts appear to be purely kinetic. No explosives, no energy discharges. Just incredibly dense objects moving at incredible speeds. General. Hayes was still on the communication screen, watching Korath's panic with calm interest. You see, Admiral, she said quietly, we told you that you picked the wrong planet. Korath looked around his bridge at his terrified crew, then back at the human general who had somehow turned a simple conquest into a nightmare. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to leave, Hayes replied, right now. Take your ships and go back where you came from. And if I refuse? Hayes's smile returned, cold and unfriendly. Then we'll show you what humans do when we stop playing defense. Across the galaxy, millions of beings sat in front of their viewing screens, watching what was supposed to be an entertaining demonstration of hegemony efficiency. The invasion of Earth had been advertised as an educational program showing how advanced military forces dealt with primitive resistance. Instead, they were watching something that made no sense. On the main broadcast channel, Admiral Korath's mighty invasion fleet hung in space around Earth looking confused and damaged. Ships that should have been invincible were showing blast marks and system failures. Ground forces that should have conquered the planet in hours were calling for help and evacuation. Ambassador Quinn floated in her energy form in the viewing lounge of Station Prime, surrounded by dozens of other Galactic Council members. Her light pulsed in patterns of confusion and disbelief. This cannot be correct, she said to Elder Vorthak, who was watching the broadcast through his large yellow eyes. The transmission must be corrupted. Primitive humans cannot be fighting off a hegemony. Battle fleet. Elder Vorthak's tentacles waved nervously. I thought the same thing, but I've checked the signal multiple times. This is a real-time broadcast from the Earth system. On the screen, they watched as human spacecraft that looked like they had been built in someone's garage flew circles around massive hegemony dreadnoughts. The human ships moved in ways that defied everything the galaxy knew about space combat. They were too fast, too agile, and too coordinated for primitive technology. Representative Mock from the Trader Guilds was calculating odds on his personal computer. This is impossible, he muttered. According to our intelligence reports, humans barely understand the physics of space travel. They should not be able to build ships that can outmaneuver hegemony cruisers. Maybe our intelligence was wrong, suggested Ambassador Tila from the Crystal Federation. But her voice sounded uncertain. Counselor. Brix from the Machine Collective was analyzing the broadcast data with his mechanical precision. The human technology does not match any known design principles, he announced. Their ships appear to be using propulsion systems that violate several basic laws of physics. Laws of physics don't get violated, Elder Vorthak said firmly. There must be an explanation. But as they continued watching, the explanation became more and more difficult to find. The humans were not just resisting the invasion, they were studying it. Every time the hegemony forces tried a new tactic, the humans seemed to learn from it immediately and develop a counter-strategy. Meanwhile, in the interrogation chambers of the hegemony ground forces, something even more disturbing was being discovered. Commander Brock sat across from a captured human soldier in what had once been a secure holding area. The human was a young male with brown hair and steady eyes. He wore a simple green uniform with no rank markings that Commander Brock could recognize. What is your name? Brock asked through his universal translator. Sergeant Mike Chun, United Earth Defense Force, the human replied calmly. How long has your species known about the galactic community? About 80 years, give or take. Brock felt his stomach drop. 80 years? That's impossible. Our first, contact protocols show that Earth was only discovered by galactic survey teams 20 years ago. Sergeant Chun smiled. Your survey teams weren't the first aliens to visit our system. They were just the most obvious. What do you mean? I mean, we've been tracking alien visitors since the 1940s. Every deep space probe, every observation satellite, every scout ship that thought it was being sneaky. Chun leaned back in his chair. We've been watching us for decades. Commander Brock stared at the human soldier. This changed everything. If humans had known about alien technology for 80 years, if they had been preparing for this possibility for generations, double quote how? Brock asked. How did you detect our scout ships? They use advanced stealth technology. Stealth technology that's designed to fool sensors based on galactic standard physics, Chun replied. But humans don't use galactic standard anything. We built our detection systems from scratch, based on our own understanding of how the universe works. That's not possible. Physics is universal. The laws of science are the same everywhere. Chun's smile grew wider. Are they? Commander, let me ask you something. How many different species contributed to what you call galactic standard? Science? Hundreds, the greatest minds from across the galaxy. And how many of those species evolved on worlds similar to Earth? Brock thought for a moment. Very few. Earth's environment is quite unusual. Exactly. So your universal science is really the science of species that evolved in similar conditions. But humans evolve differently. We see the universe differently. We think about problems differently. Chun leaned forward. And we solve problems differently. You're saying human science is different from galactic science? I'm saying human science started from completely different assumptions. When we discovered that aliens existed, we didn't try to copy your technology. We analyzed it, figured out how it worked, and then built our own versions that worked better for us. Commander Brock felt a chill of understanding. You reverse-engineered our technology. Every piece we could get our hands on. Every crashed probe, every piece of debris, every signal transmission. Chun's expression became serious. Did you really think we would just ignore the fact that we weren't alone in the universe? Across the galaxy, similar interrogations were producing the same shocking results. Every captured human soldier told the same story. Humanity had been aware of the galactic community for decades. They had been studying alien technology, learning about alien military tactics, and preparing for the day when someone decided Earth looked like an easy target. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. In another interrogation room, Commander Yex faced a human female who introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Martinez, a military scientist. How many humans know about the galactic community? Yex asked. All of them, Dr. Martinez replied simply. All of them? That's impossible. Your governments would never be able to keep such a massive secret, Dr. Martinez laughed. Secret, Commander? It was never a secret. We've been talking about alien contact openly for over a century. That's ridiculous. Our intelligence monitoring of your broadcast shows constant debate about whether aliens exist. Exactly. We've been hiding the truth in plain sight. Every science fiction movie, every television show, every book about alien invasion has been a training exercise. We've been preparing our entire population for this day. Yex stared at the human scientist. Training exercises? Do you think it's a coincidence that humans tell so many stories about alien invasions? We've been running scenarios, testing strategies, and teaching our population how to think about contact with hostile alien forces for generations. You're saying your entertainment media was actually military preparation? Among other things, yes. Every movie about humans defeating alien invaders was a lesson in asymmetric warfare. Every story about human ingenuity overcoming superior technology was a training manual. Every tale of human courage in the face of impossible odds was building the psychological foundation for exactly this situation. Dr. Martinez stood up and walked to the small window in the interrogation room. Through it, she could see the chaos of the hegemony landing zone, with confused alien soldiers trying to deal with human tactics they didn't understand. Commander, she said quietly, your species has been spacefaring for thousands of years. You've conquered dozens of worlds. You have technology that seems like magic to us. Then why aren't you afraid? Dr. Martinez turned back to face him. Because we've been imagining this exact scenario since before your species knew Earth existed. We've been planning for it, preparing for it, and dreaming about it. This isn't our worst nightmare, Commander. This is Tuesday. The interrogation reports were transmitted back to Admiral Korath's flagship, where they created a panic among the command staff. The realization that humanity had been deliberately preparing for galactic contact changed everything about the invasion. Sir, Intelligence Officer Wren reported to Korath. Based on prisoner interrogations, it appears that human resistance is not improvised. They have been planning for exactly this type of scenario for multiple generations. That's impossible, Korath insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. No species could maintain that level of preparation without galactic support. Sir, the humans appear to have developed their own unique approach to military science. They don't use standard galactic technologies or tactics. Instead, they've created their own systems specifically designed to counter advanced alien forces. Korath looked at the tactical display showing his scattered and confused fleet. Are you telling me that this entire invasion was anticipated? More than anticipated, sir. According to the prisoners, it was eagerly awaited. Many of the human soldiers we captured expressed disappointment that our invasion wasn't more challenging. Disappointment? Yes, sir. They had hoped for a more sophisticated enemy. Apparently, our tactics are considered predictable by human military standards. Admiral Korath felt the universe spinning around him. The species he had dismissed as primitive had been studying the galaxy for decades. They had been preparing for this exact invasion scenario for generations. They had built their entire military doctrine around the assumption that someday someone would come to conquer them, and now they were disappointed that the hegemony wasn't providing enough of a challenge. On his communication screen, Admiral Korath could see the ongoing broadcast to the galactic community. Millions of beings across hundreds of worlds were watching his invasion fail in real time. The hegemony's reputation for military efficiency was being destroyed before the eyes of the entire galaxy. But worse than that, they were learning. Every species watching the broadcast was seeing human tactics, human technology, and human strategies. They were learning that the humans had found ways to counter advanced galactic military doctrine. Sir, Communication Officer Vex called out, we're receiving multiple transmissions from across the galaxy. Military observers, intelligence services, and several planetary defense forces are requesting detailed information about human tactics. They want to learn from this disaster, Korath realized. Yes, sir. If the humans can resist a hegemony invasion, other species want to know how they did it. Korath understood the implications immediately. The humans weren't just fighting off his invasion. They were teaching the entire galaxy how to resist advanced military forces. Every tactic they used, every innovation they displayed, every strategy they employed was being broadcast to species that might someday face their own invasions. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were changing the balance of power in the galaxy forever, and they were doing it while acting disappointed that the challenge wasn't harder. Sir, Sensor Officer Krim called out urgently. We're detecting new activity from Earth, multiple launches from locations across the planet. More defensive satellites? No, sir, these appear to be larger vessels. Much larger. On the main viewing screen, Korath watched as massive structures began rising from Earth's surface. These weren't the small, agile craft that had been harassing his fleet. These were ships that rivaled his own dreadnoughts in size. How many? Korath asked quietly. Counting, sir. 10, 20, 50. Krim's voice became strained. Sir, I'm now reading over 100 capital-class vessels launching from Earth. 100 capital ships? Where were they hiding them? Unknown, sir. They appear to have been constructed underground, in facilities our orbital scans never detected. Admiral Korath watched in growing horror as Earth revealed the true extent of its preparations. The humans hadn't just been planning to resist an invasion. They had been planning to win, and based on the size of the fleet now emerging from Earth's surface, they had been planning to win decisively. Sir, Communication Officer Vex announced. Incoming transmission from Earth. General Hayes appeared on the screen one more time. But now, instead of standing in what Korath had thought was a primitive command center, she was clearly on the bridge of one of the massive human warships. Admiral Korath, she said with a smile that was no longer unfriendly, it was positively predatory. I believe I mentioned that we had been playing defense. Behind her, through the bridge windows, Korath could see the Earth fleet spreading out across space in a formation that spoke of long practice and careful planning. Admiral, Hayes continued, I think it's time we showed you what humans do when we stop playing defense and start playing offense. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. Elder Vorthek floated in his chair, staring at the main viewing screen with his large yellow eyes wide with disbelief. Around him, hundreds of council members from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence as they watched the impossible unfold before them. On the screen, the human fleet spread across space like a dark cloud of death. Over 100 massive warships, each one bristling with weapons that defied galactic understanding of physics and engineering. These were not the crude, improvised craft they had expected from a primitive species. These were warships that looked like they had been designed by beings who understood warfare better than anyone in the galaxy. This cannot be real, whispered Ambassador Tila, her crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. Those ships are larger than hegemony dreadnoughts. How did humans build such vessels without anyone knowing? Counselor Brix ran calculations through his mechanical brain at maximum speed. Based on the visible size and mass of those vessels, construction would have required industrial capacity exceeding most galactic civilizations. The humans would have needed to dedicate their entire planetary economy to military production for decades. Maybe that's exactly what they did, Elder Vorthek said quietly. His tentacles moved in slow, worried patterns. Maybe we never understood what we were dealing with. Representative Mock was frantically checking trade records on his personal computer. According to our economic monitoring, Earth's economy has been growing steadily for the past 50 years. We assumed it was normal industrial development. But if they were actually building a secret military fleet, then their entire civilization has been one massive military preparation. Finished Ambassador Quinn, her energy form pulsed with patterns of fear and amazement. They turned their whole planet into a weapons factory. On the screen, the human fleet began to move. But instead of attacking immediately, they formed a perfect sphere around Admiral Korath's invasion force. The hegemony ships found themselves completely surrounded, trapped in the center of a formation that spoke of careful planning and flawless execution. In the Galactic Council's Military Analysis Center, experts from dozens of species worked frantically to understand what they were seeing. General Koth of the warrior clan studied the human formation with the eye of a veteran soldier. "Look at their positioning," he said to his staff. "Every human ship is positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire, no matter which direction. The hegemony ships try to move, they will face concentrated firepower from multiple angles." "That's standard encirclement tactics," replied his aide. "Nothing revolutionary there." "Look closer," General Koth insisted. "The humans aren't just surrounding the hegemony fleet. They're positioned so that if the hegemony ships fire their weapons, they will hit each other. The humans have turned the enemy's own firepower into a weapon against them." His aide stared at the tactical display with growing understanding. "They're not just surrounding them. They're forcing them to choose between surrender and mutual destruction." "Exactly. And notice something else. The human ships are all different designs. No two vessels look identical." "What does that mean?" General Koth's expression became grim. "It means they built each ship for a specific purpose. They didn't mass-produce identical vessels like every other military force in the galaxy. They created a custom fleet where every ship fills a unique role in their overall strategy." On the main broadcast screen, Admiral Korath's voice could be heard over the communication channel, though his words were directed at the human fleet rather than the galactic audience. "This is Admiral Korath of the Hegemony Third Fleet," he announced. "You are vastly outnumbered. My fleet consists of over 250 vessels. You cannot possibly defeat us all." General Hayes' voice came back over the communication channel, calm and confident. "Admiral, you're thinking about this wrong. We're not trying to defeat your ships. We're trying to capture them." A collective gasp went through the Galactic Council chambers. Capture a hegemony battle fleet? The very idea was insane. Military fleets were destroyed in battle, not captured. The logistics alone would be impossible. Capture us? Korath's voice carried a note of disbelief. "You cannot capture an entire battle fleet. It's never been done." "It's never been tried by humans," Hayes replied. "Admiral, let me explain something about human military philosophy. We don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure the problem never happens again." "What does that mean?" "It means we're going to take your ships, your technology, and your soldiers back to Earth. We're going to study everything you brought here. And then we're going to use that knowledge to make sure no one ever tries to invade our planet again." The implications of this statement sent shockwaves through the galactic audience. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were planning to reverse engineer an entire hegemony battle fleet. They would learn every secret of advanced galactic military technology, but that wasn't the most terrifying part. Admiral Korath seemed to realize the same thing. "You cannot hold a fleet this size prisoner. The logistics are impossible. The cost would bankrupt your entire civilization." "Who said anything about holding you prisoner?" Hayes asked. "Admiral, we're going to give you a choice. You can surrender your fleet and your soldiers will be returned to hegemony space with a message for your government. Or you can fight and we'll take your fleet anyway, but your soldiers won't be going home." The communication channel fell silent. Across the galaxy, military experts tried to understand what they were hearing. The humans were offering to return hegemony soldiers after capturing their entire fleet. It made no sense from any known military perspective. Elder Vorthek spoke into the silence of the council chambers. "They're not interested in conquest. They're interested in sending a message." "What kind of message?" asked Ambassador Keela. "The kind that ensures no one ever tries this again." On the screen, they could see movement among the human fleet. But instead of attacking, the human ships began to demonstrate their capabilities. Energy beams that could slice through hegemony armor like paper. Projectile weapons that move faster than anything in the galactic military arsenal. Defensive systems that seemed to anticipate attacks before they were fired. But the most shocking demonstration came when one of the human ships simply vanished. Where did it go? Counselor Bricks asked, his mechanical sensors unable to track the missing vessel. The answer came when the ship reappeared directly next to a hegemony dreadnought, close enough to touch its hull. Impossible, breathed General Koth. No ship can move that fast without being detected. They're not moving fast, realized Representative Mock. They're moving through space in a way we don't understand. That's not advanced propulsion. That's completely different physics. The human ship that had demonstrated the impossible movement sent a simple message to the hegemony dreadnought it had appeared next to. Your shields are down. Your weapons are offline. You are helpless. Please consider surrender. Admiral Korath's voice came over the communication channel, strained and desperate. How? How are you doing this? General Hayes responded with something that sounded almost like pity in her voice. Admiral, your technology is based on galactic standard science. It's very advanced, very sophisticated, and very predictable. But humans never learned galactic standard science. We developed our own understanding of how the universe works. That's impossible. Physics is universal. Physics is universal. But the application of physics depends on how you think about the universe. And humans think about the universe very differently than anyone else in the galaxy. The human demonstration continued. Ships that could phase through solid matter. Weapons that could disable enemy systems without damaging them. Defensive screens that could redirect enemy fire back at the attackers. Technology that seemed to violate every known law of galactic science. But the most disturbing demonstration was yet to come. Admiral Korath, Hayes said over the communication channel, we're going to show you something that we hope will help you make your decision about surrender. On every screen across the galaxy, a new image appeared. It showed space beyond Earth's solar system. And in that space, moving toward the galactic core, was another fleet of human ships, a much larger fleet. That fleet is heading toward hegemony space, Hess announced calmly. They should arrive at your homeworlds in approximately 6 weeks. The Galactic Council chambers erupted in chaos. Species representatives shouted questions and demands. Military advisors tried to calculate the implications. Trade officials worried about economic disruption. Elder Vorthic's voice boomed over the noise. Order! Order in the chambers! When silence returned, Ambassador Keela spoke for everyone. How many ships are in that fleet? Enough, Hayes replied simply. Admiral Korath, the fleet you brought to invade Earth represents the entire Third Fleet of the hegemony military. The fleet we sent to visit your homeworlds is considerably larger. Visit? Korath's voice was barely a whisper. Visit, Hayes confirmed. They're not going to invade your worlds, Admiral. They're going to deliver a message to your government. And to every government in the galaxy. What message? The message is simple. Earth is under human protection. Any species that threatens our world will discover that humans do not limit their military activities to defensive operations. The implications of this statement were staggering. The humans were not just defending Earth, they were establishing themselves as a galactic military power. They were announcing that they had the capability to project force across interstellar distances. General Koth spoke quietly to his aide in the Military Analysis Center. Do you understand what just happened? No, sir. The humans just announced that they are no longer a primitive species confined to one world. They have become a galactic civilization. And their first act as a galactic civilization was to send a military fleet to the capital worlds of the hegemony. But they said it was just a message. The message is the fleet itself. They're telling the galaxy that humans can reach any world at any time with sufficient force to do whatever they decide needs to be done. On the main screen, Admiral Korath was having what appeared to be a breakdown. His voice, when it came over the communication channel, was that of a defeated being. What do you want? We want you to take a message back to the hegemony government, Hayes replied. Tell them that Earth appreciates their interest in galactic politics, but we prefer to handle our own affairs. That's all? That's all. Oh. And Admiral? Tell them that if they or anyone else decides to visit our system again, they should call first. We're happy to receive peaceful visitors. but uninvited guests will be treated as threats. And if I refuse to deliver this message, then the fleet heading toward hegemony space will deliver it for you. But I think your government would prefer to hear it from one of their own officers rather than from us." Admiral Korath was quiet for a long moment. Then his voice came over the channel, broken and defeated. "I surrender. The Third Fleet surrenders unconditionally. Thank you, Admiral. Your ships will be escorted to a safe distance from Earth, where your soldiers will be transferred to transports for return to hegemony space. Your vessels will remain with us for study." "Study? Of course. We want to understand galactic technology better. Don't worry, we'll take good care of your ships. We might even improve them before we send them back." The communication ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Elder Vorthak floated in his chair, staring at the screen where human ships were efficiently and professionally taking control of the most powerful military fleet in their sector of space. The humans were doing it without violence, without anger, and without apparent effort. "How did this happen?" he asked quietly. Ambassador Quinn's energy form pulsed with patterns of deep thought. "I think we made a fundamental error in our assessment of the human species." "What error?" "We assumed that because they were technologically primitive, they were also intellectually primitive. We thought their isolation meant they were ignorant." Her light flickered. "But isolation can also mean they had time to think, time to develop their own approaches to problems, time to prepare." Representative Mock looked up from his calculations. "According to my analysis, if the humans have been preparing for galactic contact for 80 years, they have had more time to plan their initial strategy than most species have to develop their entire civilizations. And they used that time. Well," added Counselor Brix, "they studied us while we ignored them. They learned our weaknesses while we assumed they had none. They prepared for war while we assumed they were incapable of it." Elder Vorthak's tentacles moved in slow patterns of resignation. "The question now is what this means for the rest of the galaxy." On the screen, the last of the hegemony soldiers were being transferred to transport ships for their journey home. The human fleet maintained perfect formation around the captured vessels, professional and efficient in their victory. General Hayes appeared on the communication channel one final time, addressing not Admiral Korath but the galactic audience she knew was watching. "To the Galactic Council and all species observing these events," she said, looking directly into the camera, "humanity greets you. We are aware that our actions today may seem aggressive or threatening. They are not intended to be." She paused, her expression serious but not unfriendly. "We are a peaceful species. We want to trade with you, learn from you, and contribute to galactic civilization. But we will not be conquered, enslaved, or treated as primitives. We have earned our place in the galaxy through our own efforts, and we intend to keep it. Earth stands ready to join the galactic community as equals. We hope the community is ready to accept us as we are, humans who have spent generations dreaming of the stars, preparing for the day we would meet you, and determined to make sure that meeting happens on our terms." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a new reality. Humanity had announced its presence in the most unmistakable way possible. They were no longer a primitive species on a backwater world. They were humans. And the galaxy would never be the same. Elder Vorthak spoke into the silence of the council chambers. "I believe we need to prepare new protocols for species admission to the Galactic Council." "Why?" asked Ambassador Keela. "Because I have a feeling we're about to receive an application for membership. And somehow, I don't think we're going to be able to reject it." On the screen, the human fleet was already beginning to disperse. Some ships escorting the captured hegemony vessels, others returning to Earth, still others heading out toward the edges of the solar system to resume their vigilant watch over human space. The age of humanity as a galactic power had begun, and it had begun with a simple message that would echo across the stars for generations to come. "You picked the wrong planet." Dr. Veltar looked at the data screen with his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The readings from Earth kept scrolling past his vision, but nothing seemed impressive. He had studied hundreds of new species over his long career. Most of them showed promise in some areas. These humans were different, but not in a good way. The meeting hall of the Galactic Council was enormous. Beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that adjusted to their body types. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked like walking crystals. Dr. Veltar was a Kethri, with gray skin and a tall, thin body. His people had joined the Council 3,000 years ago. Today, they were reviewing applications from species that wanted to join the galactic community. Earth was next on the list. The human delegation sat nervously at the center table. There were 5 of them, wearing simple blue uniforms. Their leader was a woman named Ambassador Sarah Martinez. She kept touching a small device on her wrist. Dr. Veltar recognized it as a basic translation unit. Honored Council members, Ambassador Martinez began. We come before you today to request membership in the Galactic Council. Humanity has much to offer the galaxy. Dr. Veltar made notes on his pad. The humans spoke confidently, but their technology readouts told a different story. He had seen their ships on the way to this meeting. Basic chemical rockets with primitive fusion drives. Their fastest ships could barely reach 1% of light speed. Commander Zekmuth sat 3 seats away from Dr. Veltar. The military leader was reviewing the humans' weapon systems. His species, the Dominion, had the strongest fleet in the galaxy. Zekmuth was known for his serious attitude and quick decisions about military threats. Ambassador Martinez activated a holographic display. We would like to show you our most advanced military technology. The display showed a long metal tube mounted on what looked like a simple platform. Dr. Veltar squinted at the image. It appeared to be some kind of weapon, but he was not sure how it worked. This is our Mark 7 railgun, Martinez explained. It uses electromagnetic fields to accelerate metal projectiles to very high speeds. Our latest models can fire rounds at 8 kilometers per second. Several council members shifted in their seats. Dr. Veltar heard what sounded like suppressed laughter from the Velkari section. The Velkari were traders who had seen weapons from across the galaxy. Commander Zekmuth's expression did not change, but Dr. Veltar caught him glancing at his aide. The aide whispered something that made other Dominion officers shake their heads. 8 kilometers per second, repeated Council Speaker Thranduck, an ancient being whose species had mastered space travel before humans discovered fire. That is ... interesting. Dr. Veltar knew what the speaker meant. 8 kilometers per second was incredibly slow by galactic standards. Most military projectiles traveled at significant fractions of light speed. The Dominion's quantum disruptors could tear apart matter at the atomic level. The hegemony used plasma weapons that burned at temperatures hotter than most stars. Ambassador Martinez continued her presentation, showing different types of railgun ammunition. There were solid metal slugs, explosive rounds, and something they called penetrator rounds made from very dense materials. Our railguns have several advantages, Martinez said. They are reliable, easy to maintain, and ammunition is simple to manufacture. They work in any environment and require no exotic materials. Dr. Veltar made more notes. Reliable and simple usually meant primitive in galactic terms. Species that bragged about easy maintenance typically lacked the technology for more advanced systems. The human presentation continued for 20 minutes. They showed their space fighters, which looked like metal boxes with engines attached. Their defensive systems were basic energy shields that could stop simple projectiles and low-level energy weapons. When the presentation ended, the Council members discussed the application in their native languages. Dr. Veltar spoke with his research team through their private communication channel. Assessment? He asked his junior researcher, Dr. Fentai. Technologically adolescent, Fentai replied. Their kinetic weapons might have been impressive 2,000 years ago. Today they are museum pieces, Dr. Veltar agreed. He had seen similar weapons in historical archives. The Brenti had used electromagnetic accelerators during their early space age, before developing photon cannons. The Zephyrians had built massive railguns for planetary defense, until they learned how to manipulate gravity itself. Commander Zekmuth was having his own discussion with his military advisors. Their voices were quiet, but Dr. Veltar's enhanced. Hearing picked up fragments. Kinetic projectiles, one advisor said. Our shields would deflect them easily. 8 kilometers per second, another laughed. My personal fighter moves faster than their weapons? Minimal threat coefficient, Zekmuth concluded. File them under no strategic value. The formal vote began an hour later. Each species on. The council cast their decision electronically. Dr. Veltar voted to accept the humans, but only for humanitarian reasons. They seemed harmless enough, and the galaxy had room for another minor species. The final tally showed overwhelming approval for human membership. However, Dr. Veltar noticed something in the fine print of the decision. The humans were being granted limited membership status. They could trade with council species and establish small colonies, but they were restricted to Outer Rim territories. Ambassador Martinez accepted the decision with visible relief. She probably did not understand that her species had just been classified as a minor power with no military significance. Thank you, Honored Council, Martinez said. We look forward to contributing to galactic peace and prosperity. After the ceremony, Dr. Veltar watched the human delegation prepare to leave. They seemed happy with their acceptance, completely unaware of how the council really viewed them. He felt slightly bad for them. Most species took decades or centuries to develop respectable technology after joining the council. The humans would need even longer. Commander Zekmuth approached him as the hall emptied. What do you think of our new members? Zekmuth asked. Dr. Veltar considered his words carefully. They show potential for growth. Their technology is basic, but they seem determined. Basic is generous, Zekmuth replied. I have seen more dangerous weapons in children's toys. Those railguns might dent the paint on one of our ships. Perhaps, Dr. Veltar said. But every species starts somewhere. Zekmuth nodded absently. His attention was already shifting to more important matters. The Dominion was planning new expansion into contested territories. Species with railguns were not part of those calculations. Dr. Veltar returned to his office to complete the paperwork. He opened the official file for species 7847 Terran and began typing his assessment. Initial technology review shows heavy reliance on primitive kinetic weapon systems. Electromagnetic rail acceleration appears to be their primary military innovation. Maximum projectile velocity 8 kilometers per second. Defensive capabilities limited to basic energy shielding. He paused, thinking about the humans' presentation. They had seemed proud of their railguns, like children showing off a drawing to adults. It was almost touching in its innocence. Recommendation: grant limited council membership with Outer Rim territorial restrictions. Assigned to low priority. Development track. Estimated time to strategic relevance: 500 to 1,000 standard years. Dr. Veltar sealed the report and transmitted it to the council archives. In a few days, some administrator would assign the humans a small mining colony somewhere far from important trade routes. They would probably be happy with whatever they received. 3 days later, Captain Sarah Chun received coordinates for a planet called Haven 7. It was located in the Outer Rim, far from the busy core systems where most galactic civilization was concentrated. The planet had rich mineral deposits but harsh weather conditions. Captain Chun studied the information package that came with the coordinates. Haven 7 was in an isolated system with unusual magnetic properties. The planet itself had a very strong magnetic field, much stronger than Earth's. Some of the technical notes mentioned interference with standard navigation equipment. She looked at the data and smiled. Most species would see the magnetic interference as a problem. Captain Ching saw it as interesting. She had been an engineer before becoming a ship captain. Electromagnetic phenomena were something she understood very well. The council had given them exactly what they asked for, a chance to prove themselves among the stars. They just did not know what humans could do when they put their minds to something. Captain Chen began planning the journey to Haven 7. She made lists of equipment and personnel for the colony. Most items were standard: prefabricated buildings, mining equipment, communication arrays, and basic defensive systems. At the bottom of her list, she added something that made her smile: railgun components for mining operations. The Council thought human railguns were primitive toys. They would find out how wrong they were, but not for quite some time. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. When humans found a tool that worked, they did not abandon it for something fancier. They made it better. 3 years had passed since Captain Sarah Chun first set foot on Haven 7. The human colony had grown from a few temporary shelters to a proper settlement with over 2,000 people. The mining operations were running smoothly, extracting rare minerals that the galactic markets paid good prices for. Captain Chun stood on the observation deck of the main command center, looking out at the bustling activity below. Workers in protective suits moved between the mining equipment and processing facilities. The planet's constant electromagnetic storms created beautiful light shows in the sky, but they also made electronic equipment behave strangely. Dr. Marcus Webb joined her at the observation window. He carried a thick folder of research notes and had the excited look of someone who had made an important discovery. "The magnetic readings are off the charts again today," Webb said, opening his folder. "I have been studying this planet's electromagnetic properties for 6 months now. Sarah, this place is incredible." Captain Chin turned to face him. Webb had been the chief weapons engineer at the Mars Defense Station before volunteering for the colony mission. His expertise with railgun technology had been valuable during the setup of their mining operations. "Show me what you found, Chun," said. Webb spread several charts across a nearby table. The papers were covered with calculations and diagrams that looked like complex electrical circuits. "Look at these field strength measurements," Webb explained, pointing to a graph with very high peaks. "Haven 7's magnetic field is not just strong. It forms natural focusing patterns that amplify electromagnetic effects." June studied the charts. She had an engineering background, but Webb's calculations were beyond her expertise. However, she could see that the numbers were much higher than anything they had expected. "What does this mean for our operations?" she asked. "Well, officially, it means our mining railguns are working much better than designed," Webb said with a slight smile. "We are extracting ore at twice the projected rate because the electromagnetic acceleration is more efficient here." Chun noticed Webb's emphasis on the word officially. She had known him long enough to recognize when he was holding something back. And unofficially? Webb glanced around to make sure they were alone, then pulled out another set of papers from the bottom of his folder. These diagrams showed much larger structures with complex electromagnetic coil arrangements. "Unofficially, I think we could scale up our railgun technology in ways that would surprise a lot of people," Webb said quietly. "The magnetic field on this planet could be used to create acceleration chambers of unprecedented size." Captain Chain felt her pulse quicken. She understood the implications immediately. The galactic community had dismissed human railguns as primitive weapons. But what if those weapons could be made much more powerful? "How much more powerful?" she asked. "I would need to run more tests," Webb replied. But my preliminary calculations suggest we could achieve projectile velocities that no one in the galaxy expects from kinetic weapons." Their conversation was interrupted by a communication alert from the main console. Chun walked over and activated the display. The face of Trader Kexelin appeared on the screen. The Valkyrie merchant had been visiting Haven 7 regularly to collect mineral shipments. "Greetings, Captain Chun," Kexelin said in accented galactic standard. "I am approaching your system for the monthly pickup. Is your shipment ready?" "Ready and waiting," Chun replied. "We will have the cargo loaded within 2 hours of your arrival." "Excellent. Your mining operations continue to impress the trade councils. Very efficient for such ... simple equipment." Chun smiled politely. After 3 years, she had grown used to the casual condescension from galactic species. They always complimented human efficiency while making it clear they considered human technology inferior. We do our best with what we have, Chun said. After ending the communication, Webb returned to his research notes. Speaking of simple equipment, Kexelen will probably want to inspect our mining railguns again. He always asks the same questions about their operation. Let him look, Chun said. He sees what we want him to see. This was true. The mining railguns that Kexelen and other visitors observed were indeed simple devices used for extracting ore from deep rock formations. They operated exactly as expected for human technology. What the visitors did not see were the experimental installations that Webb had been building in hidden sections of the mining complex. Over the past year, Webb and a small team of engineers had been testing ways to harness Haven 7's unique magnetic properties. They worked during the night shifts when most of the colony was asleep. Their experiments were disguised as routine maintenance on the mining equipment. How is the research project progressing? Chun asked, using their code phrase for Webb's secret work. Better than I hoped, Webb replied. We have successfully tested small-scale versions of the new acceleration system. The results are promising, but we need more time and resources too. Build anything significant, Chun nodded. They had to be careful. The galactic community allowed human colonies to have defensive weapons, but there were limits. If other species suspected that humans were developing advanced military technology, it could lead to unwanted attention. Keep working on it, Chun said, but maintain security protocols. We are not ready to show anyone what we are really capable of. 2 hours later, Trader Kexelen's ship landed at the colony's small spaceport. Shin met him personally, as she always did during these visits. The Velkari trader was a typical representative of his species, tall, thin, with blue-green skin and large eyes adapted for low-light conditions. Captain Chun, a pleasure as always, Kexelen said as they walked toward the cargo storage area. How are you adapting to life in the Outer Rim? We are doing well, Chun replied. The work is hard, but rewarding. I imagine it must be difficult, being so far from the civilized systems, Kexelen continued. Do you ever regret not choosing a more developed career path? I know several species that could use skilled administrators in the core worlds. Chun kept her expression neutral. We prefer building something of our own out here. They reached the cargo area, where workers were loading refined minerals onto anti-gravity sleds. The shipment represented 3 months of mining operations, and would earn the colony enough credits to purchase supplies and equipment for the next quarter. Your extraction rates continue to improve, Kexelen observed, checking the manifest on his portable device. These quantities are quite impressive for such basic mining technology. Our people work hard, Chun said simply. Kexelen nodded absently, then looked toward the mining complex visible in the distance. I noticed you have added some new structures since my last visit, expanding operations. Routine upgrades to our processing facilities, Chun replied. This was technically true. Webb's experimental installations were classified as processing equipment in the colony's official records. Of course. I suppose even simple systems can be optimized over time. After the cargo transfer was complete, Kexelen requested his usual tour of the mining operations. Cheon personally guided him through the main facilities, showing him the standard railgun extractors and ore processing equipment. Fascinating, Kexelen said as they watched a mining railgun fire a penetrator round deep into a rock formation. Such a straightforward approach to excavation. No plasma cutters or molecular disruptors needed. Sometimes the old methods work best, Chun said. What Kexelen did not see was the additional electromagnetic infrastructure that Webb had integrated into the mining systems. To a casual observer, the extra coils and power conduits looked like standard equipment upgrades. In reality, they were components of a much larger project. That evening, after Kexelen's ship had departed, Chun met with Webb and his research team in a secure conference room. The team consisted of 12 engineers and scientists who had volunteered for the classified project. Report, Chun said as the meeting began. Dr. Sarah Kim, the team's physicist, spoke first. We have completed analysis of the magnetic field variations across the planet. There are several locations where natural focusing effects are particularly strong. Mining Site 7 shows the most promise, added engineer Tom Rodriguez. The geological formations there create a natural electromagnetic channel that extends for several kilometers underground. Webb pulled up a three-dimensional map of the proposed site. If we could build an acceleration chamber along this natural channel, we could achieve projectile velocities that would shock the galactic community. How shocked are we talking about? Chun asked. Conservative estimates suggest we could reach 15% of light speed, Webb replied. Possibly higher with optimal conditions. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. A projectile traveling at 15% of light speed would carry kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. No shield. Technology in the galaxy was designed to stop relativistic projectiles. What would we need to build such a system? Chun asked. Time, materials, and secrecy, Webb said. The construction would take at least 6 months, and we would need to disguise it as an expansion of mining operations. Chun thought carefully about the implications. If they were discovered building such a weapon, it could be seen as an act of aggression by the galactic community. But if they succeeded, humanity would have a defensive capability that no one expected. The political situation in the core systems is becoming unstable, Chun said. Intelligence reports suggest that the Dominion of Katva is considering expansion into neutral territories. This was true. Recent communications from Earth had described increasing tensions between major galactic powers. The Dominion was known for their aggressive policies and advanced quantum weaponry. If they decided to expand toward the Outer Rim, colonies like Haven 7 could become targets. If the Dominion comes this way, our standard defenses would not last. 5 minutes against their fleet, said Dr. Kim. But they would not expect any real resistance from a human mining colony, Webb added. Their intelligence assessments still classify our weapons as primitive. Chun made her decision. Begin the project, but maintain absolute security. If anyone asks, we are expanding our deep mining operations to reach new ore deposits. Over. The following weeks, the secret construction began. Webb's team worked in carefully planned shifts, using mining equipment to excavate the massive underground chamber that would house their electromagnetic acceleration system. To outside observers, it looked like normal expansion of the colony's operations. The project required enormous amounts of power and sophisticated electromagnetic components. Fortunately, the colony's fusion reactors could provide the energy, and many of the needed materials could be manufactured using their existing fabrication facilities. 3 months into the construction, they received another visit from a galactic trader. This time it was a hegemony merchant named Vorthak who was less friendly than Kexelen. Your mining output has increased significantly, Vorthak observed during his inspection. The Hegemony Trade Authority is curious about your methods. We have optimized our extraction processes, Chun replied carefully. Indeed. Some in the Trade Authority wonder if human mining techniques might be applicable to other operations. Perhaps you would be willing to share your innovations? Shin felt a chill of concern. If the hegemony became too interested in their operations, it could lead to unwanted scrutiny. Our methods are specifically adapted to Haven 7's unique conditions, she said. They probably would not work well on other planets. Vorthak accepted this explanation, but Chun noticed that he spent more time examining their equipment than previous traders had. She made a mental note to be even more careful about security. That night, Webb reported that the acceleration chamber was nearly complete. The electromagnetic coils were installed and tested. The power systems were online and functioning properly. All they needed now was a suitable projectile and a target to test their creation. When will we be ready for a full test? Chun asked. 2 weeks, Webb replied. But we will only get one chance. The power requirements are enormous. After we fire this thing, it will take days to recharge the system. Chun nodded. She hoped they would never need to use their secret weapon. But if the galaxy's political situation continued to deteriorate, Haven 7 might need every advantage it could get. The humans were no longer the harmless mining colony that the galactic community thought they were. They had become something much more dangerous, and no one suspected a thing. Admiral Vexcan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Victory, watching the sensor displays as his fleet approached the Haven 7 system. 47 ships of the Dominion Navy moved in perfect formation behind him. It was more firepower than most species had ever seen in one place. The Admiral was a tall member of the Katva species, with dark purple skin and 4 arms that ended in clawed hands. His people had ruled their section of the galaxy for over 1,000 years through superior military technology and the willingness to use it. "Report on the target system," Vexcan commanded. Captain Vexter, his intelligence officer, activated a holographic display showing the Haven 7 system. "Single inhabited planet, Admiral. Human mining colony established 3 years ago. Population approximately 2,000. Minimal defensive capabilities." Vexcan studied the display with satisfaction. The humans were exactly where intelligence reports had placed them. A small, isolated colony with no strategic value except as an example to other species. "What defenses do they have?" Vexcan asked. "Standard railgun installations for mining operations," Vexter replied. "Our files indicate maximum projectile velocity of 8 kilometers per second. Basic energy shields around the main settlement. No military spacecraft detected," Vexcan nodded. The Dominion had decided to expand into the Outer Rim territories, and colonies like Haven 7 needed to understand their new position in the galactic order. Most would surrender without resistance. Once they saw the size of his fleet. "Communications, open a channel to the human colony," Vexcan ordered. The main screen shifted to show the bridge of a human vessel in orbit around Haven 7. A woman in a simple blue uniform appeared on the display. Her expression was calm, but Vexcan could see tension in her posture. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the Haven 7 colony," the woman said. "To what do we owe this visit from the Dominion Navy?" "I am Admiral Vexcan," he replied. "You are speaking to the commander of the 15th Expansion Fleet. Your territory now falls under Dominion protection." Captain Chin's expression did not change, but Vexcan noticed her hands grip the arms of her chair more tightly. "We were not aware that our territory was in dispute," Chun said carefully. "Haven 7 is a lawful settlement granted by the Galactic Council. The Council's authority in this region has been superseded," Vexcan stated. "You have 2 choices. Accept Dominion governance and continue your operations under our oversight, or face the consequences of resistance." The human captain was quiet for several seconds. Vexcan had seen this reaction many times before. Lesser species needed time to process the reality of their situation. "What would Dominion governance mean for our colony?" Chun asked. 70% of your mining output will be redirected to Dominion facilities," Vexcan explained. "A garrison will be established to ensure compliance. Your people will be relocated to make room for Dominion personnel?" "I see," Chun said. "May I request time to discuss this with my people?" Vexcan smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "You may have 24 hours to consider your options. I suggest you choose wisely." The communication ended, and Vexcan turned to his tactical officer. "Deploy the fleet in standard intimidation formation. I want every human on that planet to see our ships when they look up at their sky." "Yes, Admiral," the tactical officer replied. "Shall I charge weapon systems?" "Maintain defensive protocols," Vexcan said. "Our shields should be sufficient against anything the humans might have." This was standard procedure for Dominion expansion operations. The fleet would position itself around the target world with shields raised and weapons ready. Most species surrendered immediately when faced with such overwhelming force, Vexcan had commanded. Similar operations against 17 different worlds over the past 5 years. Only twice had the target species chosen to resist, and both conflicts had lasted less than an hour. Human weapons were even more primitive than most. Captain Vexter was reviewing intelligence files on human military capabilities. Admiral, our analysis indicates that human railguns pose minimal threat to our vessels. Their maximum projectile velocity is insufficient to penetrate modern shielding. Confirmed, Vexcan replied. Even if they fire everything they have at U.S., our defensive systems will deflect their attacks with ease. The inevitable Victory and her escort ships moved into position around Haven 7. The planet was a harsh world with constant electromagnetic storms. But it had valuable mineral deposits that would serve Dominion industrial needs well on the planet's surface. Captain Chun was meeting with her senior staff in the colony's command center. The room was filled with tension as everyone tried to process what was happening. 47 ships, reported Commander Jackson, the colony's military advisor. Our sensors are having trouble getting exact readings through the electromagnetic interference, but that's definitely a full battle fleet. Dr. Webb sat at the conference table with his research team. They had been preparing for this possibility, but seeing it happen was still shocking. Our standard defenses won't even slow them down, Jackson continued. Those ships have quantum weapons and energy shields that can deflect anything we have. Not everything we have, Webb said quietly. Chun looked at him carefully. Webb's secret project was complete, but they had never tested it at full power. If they were going to use it, this might be their only chance. How long do you need to prepare? Chun asked. 6 hours for full system charging, Webb replied. But Sarah, we only get one shot. After that, the power grid will need days to recover. Chun thought about their options. Surrender meant the end of their colony as an independent settlement. Resistance with conventional weapons meant certain destruction, but Webb's project offered a third possibility. Do it, Chun decided, but maintain normal colony operations. If they're watching us, we need to look like we're just going about our business. Over the next 18 hours, Webb and his team worked frantically to prepare their secret weapon. The electromagnetic acceleration chamber had been built into the planet's natural magnetic field structure. From orbit, it would look like normal mining operations. The charging process required enormous amounts of power from the colony's fusion reactors. Webb's team had to be careful to mask the energy signatures so the Dominion fleet wouldn't detect what they were doing. Admiral Vexcan spent the waiting period reviewing reports from other expansion operations. The Dominion's conquest of the Outer Rim was proceeding ahead of schedule. Most species were submitting without resistance. Admiral, Captain Vexter reported, we are detecting increased power consumption from the human colony. Their energy output has tripled over the past 12 hours. Vexcan frowned. What are they doing down there? Unknown, sir. The planet's electromagnetic field is interfering with our detailed scans. It could be industrial activity or preparation for evacuation. Continue monitoring, Vexcan ordered. If they're planning to run, we'll stop them before they reach the edge of the system. The Admiral was not particularly concerned. Human ships were slow and poorly armed. Even if the colonists tried to escape, his fleet could intercept them easily. 24 hours after the ultimatum, Captain. Chun opened communications with the Dominion flagship. Admiral Vexcan, Chun said, we have reached our decision. I am listening, Vexcan replied, confident that he already knew what the human would say. We reject your demand for surrender, Chun stated clearly. Haven 7 is our home, and we will not abandon it. Vexcan was surprised. Most species that chose to resist made dramatic speeches about honor and freedom. This human seemed almost casual about her defiance. You understand what this means? Vexcan asked. We understand perfectly, Chun replied. We're ready for whatever comes next. Very well, Vexcan said. You have chosen destruction over wisdom. I will give you one final chance to reconsider. Our answer remains the same, Chun said firmly. Vexcan cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. Prepare to demonstrate the consequences of resistance. Target their largest mining facility with a low-power quantum burst. I want to show them what we can do without destroying anything valuable. Yes, Admiral, weapons charging. The inevitable victory's main quantum disruptor began building energy for the demonstration shot. The weapon could obliterate the entire colony if fired at full power, but Ken wanted to give the humans a chance to see reason. "Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. The electromagnetic interference is making it difficult to get clear sensor data." "Specify," Ken demanded. "Unknown energy source? Approximately 50 kilometers from the main settlement. Power output is extremely high, but the signature doesn't match any known human technology." Ken studied the sensor displays. The readings were confusing, but not alarming. The humans probably had some kind of industrial equipment that was causing the interference. "Continue targeting the mining facility," he ordered. "Whatever they're doing down there won't help them against our weapons." On Haven 7's surface, Webb made final adjustments to the targeting system. The projectile was loaded, a solid tungsten rod weighing 3 tons, designed to survive the incredible acceleration forces. "Power at 98%, reported Dr. Kim from the control station. "All systems showing green?" "Targeting computer has a lock on the flagship," added Engineer Rodriguez. "Distance, 400,000 kilometers." Webb looked at Captain Chun, who had